Any public comments?
I see that on the agenda you have an appointment with Richard Sager about property auctions. And I don't know what that's about, but I just wanted to read a comment that he made on October 18th, 2016, after the property auction had been canceled. He wrote on the Tufton Borough Free Speech Forum, "In retrospect," this is quoting him, "in retrospect, I should have double-checked to make certain the town was authorized to sell tax-acquired properties. My bad." And then he went on, it was a longer comment, but I'll just read. Quote, "The only one who suffers any financial consequence of this lack of town authority is me. I will absorb the cost of signs and advertising." End quote. So, just wanted to read that into the record.
Okay.
So it's,
We're all set with public input. Why don't we go to the next item? Appointment, Rick Sager, come on down.
good.
Welcome.
Thank you. So, I'm here to talk to you about property auction. There's been some water under the bridge, obviously, and first thing we have to deal with is the town meeting vote on Article 9, I think it was, where it was, the language was changed somewhat by a couple of amendments from what I understand. The final language, as I have it from the minutes, is to see if the town will vote pursuant to RSA 80:80 to authorize the selectmen to convey real property acquired by the town by tax collector's deed, by advertised sealed bid, or in such manner as determined by the selectmen as justice may require, which is, you know, close to the statute. I wasn't at this part of the meeting. I did speak with New Hampshire Municipal Association, as I indicated, I think, to Karen, and it's their opinion, and they will provide this opinion to you in writing if you want, that you can still do a public auction, because RSA 80:80 I should say, authorizes the selectmen to sell property, and then you have the choice whether to do it by a public auction or by sealed bid. Now, however you guys want to do it is fine with me. I would suggest you reach out to NHMA and have them weigh in on it, so I'm not accused of, conflict of interest, which I've been accused of. But there's a couple things that I think you should consider if you're going to consider doing an auction. From my experience doing auctions for towns for probably 20 years now, more so lately, since I got my auctioneer license, sealed bids, you just don't generate the amount of money that you do at an auction. I understand from some of the comments that were made at the town meeting, and getting stuff third hand, one of the concerns was that people who might want to bid on properties, and if they're not available the day of the auction, won't be able to bid. Well, every auction I run, I invite people, if they want to give me a limit by which they're going to bid up to. I take that, I have one of my staff bid that person. So I don't think that's a valid concern. Another thing you have to be concerned about is former owners, if the properties are held for less than 3 years, still have an interest in it. So in other words, if the town generates from a sale, whether it be sealed bid or auction, more than the past due taxes, interest penalty, the former owner gets the excess. Or if the property happened to be mortgaged, the former owner and the mortgage company fight over it. So it's not necessarily all the money comes to the town, but the former owners also benefit. So what do? I know I've been over this with the two of you before. You weren't selectmen at the time, Chip. Essentially what I do is I take all the properties that you folks want to get back on the tax rolls. I recommend strongly they be done by absolute auction, which means we take no minimum bid, and that really hasn't been a problem. Why do you do that? Because it generates a lot more interest, and if you set a minimum bid and it doesn't sell, you still have the property, and then what do you do? So that's the way I like to go. The town basically doesn't do anything. I take care of, because I happen to be an attorney and an auctioneer, I take care of all the legal, which means the closings, all the paperwork preparation for the deed and what we have to file with the state of New Hampshire. Advertising, it's all about advertising, so I put a lot of budget into advertising, which includes the signage, which I put up 2 signs on each property, one specific to that day and the other with some generic information regarding the company, my company that does this. I get it on the town website. I have my own website. I send letters to all of the abutters of the properties because they tend to be ones that buy a lot of the pieces of land. I sometimes put it on another website called auctionzip.com. I haven't done that recently. Let's see. And of course, we field calls, quite a number of calls from people interested in. So essentially what happens is this. I run an auction. The town folks really, the staff don't really have to do anything except provide us some documents that sometimes I can't spend time looking for, such as certified mail receipts when the tax notice goes to the former owner for the final time, because as people do their due diligence prior to the auction, if they hire attorneys, they're going to want to see those certified record receipts, or not certified record, certified mail receipts. And we put that all on the website. So for each property, we put photographs of the property, if we can get in there. Most of the time we can. The tax collector's deed into the town, the former owner's deed, and whatever other information such as the certified mail receipts that I talked about. I hold an auction at a central location, perhaps it would be the townhouse, and I qualify bidders. I require a deposit to become a qualified bidder, usually $1,000, and then auction the property. Usually take backup bidders because not everybody comes through. And I've sold, I think my last auction I did, I sold 2 of the properties to backup bidders. And I've never had an auction where not every property was sold. So everything gets back onto the tax rolls and the town makes some money. Former owners generate some revenue sometimes. And then I do the closings, and I have the selectmen sign a power of attorney just for tax deed acquired properties, which I record in the registry of deeds so I can sign the deeds. So it's basically a soup to nuts type thing. As how I get paid is I get a 10% buyer's premium. So if someone bids at an auction, $20,000, I get $2,000. There's no additional cost to the town, and that's it. We require, generally speaking, between 30 and 45 days for people to close. If they don't, then the town has an option of going after them for specific performance, but I've never done that.
So it's 3 years? I thought it was 7. I'm sorry.
It's 3 years. If the town owns the property for 3 years, the former owner's right of redemption expires.
So that's changed.
Yes,
But
a lot of
during
that's changed.
During the 3-year period, the right of redemption still remains.
Yes, however, if the property is owned by the town for less than 3 years, you can send the former owner what we call a 90-day letter. So it has to be sent out 90 days before the sale occurs, and the former owner has 30 days in order to get back to the town saying that they're ready, willing, and able to buy back the property, at which point the town calculates what's owed give the former owner a reasonable time to come up with the money. If they don't, their right of redemption expires.
But if it's anything that's over 3 years.
It's
You
my,
don't have to send a letter.
it's my understanding all of these
So we're not
properties are
issuing,
over 3 years.
we're not issuing quitclaim deeds, we're actually issuing.
We're issuing selectmen's deeds with no covenants.
And I know there was a lot of discussion about the difference between auctioning and sealed bids. In your, way to put this, you don't have an internet connection that you use during the auction period? In other words, if I want to,
Could you
if I want to be in
check online
Boston
bids
during
during the
this
auction?
property, can I do it over the internet?
I haven't done that yet. I've been thinking about it, but I just haven't done it yet. Usually, you know, because there's not that many properties. It's not like an auction where you're selling off, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of items. But, you know, that's something I would like to do. I just haven't done it yet.
Because we have internet connectivity here. I don't know how hard it is to do the program for auctioning it. What do you think about it?
I've done that type of, when I've been bidding, I've done that type of thing. I haven't been on the receiving end to understand what the technology is, and, you know, do I have to have one or two people monitoring that? But I get people that say, look, I'm interested in this piece of property, and I say, well, tell me what your maximum bid is, give me a check for the bidder registration, I'll have one of my staff bid up to your limit, and if you don't get it, we send you back your check.
But you miss all the excitement.
Do you have any questions?
Well, I know there was some conversation at town meeting about, or a particular comment from somebody about, gee, sealed bid brings a higher price. That hasn't been my observation, not with real estate, but just with collector cars and boats and that sort of thing. The reason you go to auction is because auction tends to produce the highest selling price for an item. I mean, at an auction, what you want is two people that are interested in the item, and they just keep going. How well that works for the tax deeded property auctions as opposed to things like collector cars, I don't know, but it's the heat of the moment that tends to help bring the price a little higher than if it's just all done by sealed bid.
I agree, and if a bank or a lender forecloses on a property, they have no choice but to do an auction. They can't do sealed bids, so there must be some reason for that. And the experience in Wakefield, I did a few auctions for them over the years, and then they decided, we're going to try doing an in-house sealed bid, and they were disappointed, and then had me do the next one.
Well, there's no reason why the selectmen couldn't accept sealed bids, and we can also have an auction. And at that point in time, the selectmen could be the representative of the bidder. The underlying problem with sealed bids and governments and sealed bids and banks is the element of collusion, the dishonesty that's involved with sealed bidding and in the public's eye. And in fact, on any number of occasions. So we have that to deal with. We're walking on a strange line when we decide who we're going to award the bid to. Then it becomes our decision. The other part of this is that, you know, we have to figure out in our cost structure, you know, who are we going to hire to create the deed, who are we going to hire to do the filings, who are we going to hire to do the legal. And that takes away from the profit from a sealed bidding process, because now the expense is on our head as opposed to Attorney Sager.
Right, so I'm essentially fronting all costs and doing everything and absorbing all the legal.
Right, I mean, you have advertising rates, so what kind of budget do we want to put together for a sealed bidding, an effective sealed bidding process versus?
I have a couple of questions. How many auctions have you done?
That's That's a good question.
More than two handfuls?
Yes. I'm going to say between 15 and 20, rough figure. And I don't have to be an auctioneer to do that type of thing for the town, you know?
And could you list some of the municipalities you've worked for?
Wakefield, I've done a number, Tamworth, Ossipee, Claremont, I got one coming up June 3 in Unity, Hanover did one. That's what pops in my head right this second.
And did you have a chance to look at the assessed value versus the closing bid price?
Yeah, the rule of thumb, I always look at that afterwards to see where we are. It generally comes in somewhere around a third to maybe 40% of the assessed value, averaged out over all the properties. Last auction I did in Tamworth, a couple of the properties shockingly sold for more than the assessed value, but that's generally not the case. Another problem with sealed bids is, what do you do if you have a tie? You know, it doesn't happen a lot, but you don't sell the property.
What is the budget estimated if the town of Tuftonboro had to develop a budget and to do all the things that you do? Is it $100 per property or $1,000 per property or what?
Inclusive of closings and...
Yes. If that's a nebulous...
If I do everything I do right now with...
Because if you don't do it, someone else has to do it, correct?
Right. If I build out for my staff, taking phone calls and putting together the documents, I generally do the website myself. Putting up the signage, buying the signs, how much per property? Real rough figure, you know, if I was to bill it out, $1,000 a property perhaps, something like that, you know.
We have 20 properties that we're considering, correct?
I don't
I
know,
have
we
the
haven't
information
reviewed-
if you like it.
Right. I have a comment. I used to live in Claremont, have friends there, relatives there. I asked them, the ones that I know that are in government. I know people in Wakefield, down there all the time, and in Ossipee quite a bit. My question was, geez, how did the auction go, and tell me about it, and I was very careful not to be a district attorney where I was asking the question to make sure you knew what answer I wanted to get, okay? Every single individual, and there were 7 people I talked to last year, overwhelming, it's the way to go. And you are using some of the key buzzwords in your presentation that they used. You're understating them. Okay? Then I asked the most important question, knowing what you know now. Would you hire this guy again? Yes. 2 of the 7 people said, you want me to put that in writing? Let me continue. I know of 3 people in town who've come to me and said, I'm interested in bidding on a property that's next to me. I'm uncomfortable putting a sealed bid down. I want to be there and be able to, hey, for a few more dollars, is it worth it? What do you think, dear? Like that. If it's $1,000 per property for us to develop a budget, that's $20,000 that has to come from somebody's budget. There's nothing budgeted for that. The one other side of it, to be fair, is, and I'm going to throw myself on the sword, due to a family issue, when this issue came up last year, I asked as a selectman, gee, are all the Ts crossed, all the Is dotted? And I was assured they were. And it's the one time I didn't go sit in the library for 3 hours and go back the last 20 years to make sure. I said right then and there, that will never happen again.
Won't happen to me either.
Okay.
It's about to.
The bottom line is, town meeting voted 54 to 51, and the dilemma I have is majority rules. So I'm laying my cards right on the table. And I'm struggling with that.
I understand.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work. I mean, it's not like I just go show up in an auction and make a lot of money. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and, you know, it is what it is. So if you guys decide to go with me, great.
Would you be willing to answer any questions if anybody has a question?
Sure.
Do you have any more questions? Okay to open it up?
Yeah, I just,
ahead.
a quick statement that an auction that generates the market happens in an auction setting, whereas sealed bids, uninformed, one-time buyers or buyers of few properties have to determine what value is, whereas the market generates the value at an auction. So it's although you may think it's worth the X, or you can buy it for X sitting in your living room or at your office, the marketplace isn't telling you anything. You know, so it's, when you get to an auction, the marketplace tells you what the value of the real property is. It might be less than what you were willing to pay in a sealed bid. Just to preclude any sort of extended conversation with the public, I think we need to probably at some point in time go over the properties that we want to list and then make some determinations about offering this. If we're going to auction the property, I don't think not that I have anything against Attorney Sager at all, but we need to at least explore the marketplace for auctioneers to see what other options the town has for vis-a-vis costs and all the rest. I think it's only fair to the voters of the town that we do that.
Sure.
And once again,
Fine.
I'm not saying anything against
I understand.
Attorney Sager. I think we just need to, it got a little muddy this year, and I think we need to clear the
Sure.
water a bit.
At this point, I'd like to ask you to take questions. I'd like to ask everyone to please remain civil. So any questions?
See that sign says be nice.
Who had their hand up first? Go ahead.
I'm just curious, did he ask to be put on the agenda, or was he invited by the selectmen?
No, he has to be put on the agenda.
Okay.
But he was coming anyway because we had a non-public prior to this about another issue that we needed to talk to him
No,
about.
that was all. I just wanted to know if you invited him or if you asked him to put on the agenda. Thanks.
Please. When Attorney Sager read the amended article, he was absolutely correct. However, the second amendment to the article read, to see if the town will vote pursuant to RSA 80:A to authorize the selectmen to convey real property acquired by the town by tax collector's deed by advertised sealed bid. And that amendment article was declared passed.
Or in such manner as determined by the
That's
selectmen.
not what the minutes of the meeting say.
I'm reading the amendment right here.
I printed it right out.
I don't know, I have just.
This is right off your website. I'd like to have you read that, please.
I just got what I got.
Steve Snow and Steve Brenzer both brought that up.
I don't know then, but.
That's right off the website and had his minutes, which would really make this discussion interesting, and possibly next March you might
And
revisit
this
it.
is the official town website?
Right off the website, you're welcome to keep
Okay,
that.
because the same wording is here in what I have, which is the town
So
warrant,
which is right?
which is the town warrant. And not unlike any other number of things that have come before the board today even, selectively reading through is fine. And what you read is exactly what's here, except where it continues to say, or in such manner as determined by the selectmen.
And I would ask that you review the video, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just reading from the minutes of the town meeting that were prepared, and I read that language. That's what I'm looking at. I was not at that part of the meeting.
Anything else?
Two things. First, Lloyd, I really appreciate it how you have been doing this and opening up to comment from people who are here. I think it's really great. Thank you. Second, please do check the amended article, because Heather's draft minutes were incorrect. And she got a video from Joe, and Joe can, I think, confirm that he did her video, and she watched it, and updated the minutes. And connected to that, I would say that the fact that the town meeting explicitly removed auction would mean that under what I believe is called no means no, you may not do an auction. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, so go ahead and look at that. I would just really urge you, if you're even remotely considering giving the finger to town meeting, that you really be sure that you have the legal right to do so, and, you know, don't base that decision on legal advice from an auctioneer who gave you bad legal advice before. Thank you.
Okay, we're all set here?
I think the only comment I would make to that is that if we look at the pieces of property that the town wants to sell, and we estimate the cost to the town for selling those properties, at that point in time, under a sealed bid situation, because now we have to bear the cost, at that point in time, we can then vote knowledgeably whether
Yes.
or not to have a sale at all.
Yes.
So.
No, it doesn't make sense to
and
spend,
that's the reason why.
doesn't make sense to spend $50,000 to make 10, yes.
And I would recommend you get, you know, go to NHMA, get their opinion, get another opinion from another attorney if you want. You know, you could be right about as far as the language is concerned. I don't know. I'm just reading what I was provided, so.
And that's what I was provided, so.
Your hand.
Where does the money go from the auction?
Into the general fund, correct?
Well, yeah, but we don't have, it essentially goes into your reserve, because the budget's been set, so then it's next.
Yep.
It becomes-
Well, it
It
goes
goes into the
into the
general
general fund, and it's not money that has been authorized for expenditure this year, so yeah. it's just-
Is that your unanticipated fund balance
Not until next year.
yeah.
for next
It's
year?
the same thing. I'm
So
just
eventually
saying-
it works its way into the system, so the taxpayers get a break.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Awesome.
And just to enlighten you a little bit, is there's a $50,000 line item in this year's budget for sale of property, so we may come up 50 grand short on our revenue estimates if we don't do something.
We're allowed 3 times a year to reassess that by the DRA.
Yeah, you can look at it again, but you can't change your
That's
budget
right.
without having those
Well,
budgets on.
They can look at it. All set?
Just one more quick thing. You had said that you will be reviewing and looking at the properties and making an assessment. And you are going to take into consideration, because the planning board, conservation, all get a list of these properties prior to, with what we considered for recommendations to be done or not done with them. Those will be taken into account as well.
Yep.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's a file,
Yes, there is. Yep.
so those recommendations.
Right, by law, they're allowed to weigh in on it, make
Well,
recommendations.
Well, it depends on how you, there's 2 statutes. One is the one that, this 80:80, it just gives the selectmen the right to sell them. Then there's the other one, which is where the selectmen can auction or sealed bid, sell or buy property. And that doesn't really mention, no, it doesn't at all, mention tax deeded properties, but you can't sell properties that the town got by gift or otherwise under 80:80, which was just passed at the meeting. You can sell whatever you have on this other one,
Right.
which is 41:14A, and that requires that you get an opinion from the Planning Board and Conservation Commission before selling them. You can certainly do it with tax-acquired properties as well. You know, not a bad idea, and, you know, it's non-binding recommendations, but at least you get what we're in.
Involves everybody.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Have a safe
All set.
trip home, have a nice summer.
Going over to Sunset to do some more cleanup, so got a good change of clothes in my car, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Travel safe.
I will.
Next we'll go to, any other business? Public input. Thank you for waiting. I see your hand up. Okay, anybody else?
I have the video of the Article 9 warrant article number 9 being amended. And I'm going to email it to you so that you can all review it. Chip, is your town email chip.albie or
I think so. I don't- I don't-
Karen, can you confirm what his?
I've never set one up.
Oh,
Okay, so you can send it to I'll give you my email address.
well, I'll send it to Karen.
Send it to Karen, she can send it to me. I mean, I hope you appreciate the fact that we were handed this, and
Yes.
I don't have a photographic memory of everything that happened at town meeting. I'm reading this.
Although you are in the video right there, so you were there, but
No, I'm
I'm just
saying-
teasing you there, but.
I'm not saying I'm in, but I'm also saying I'm old. So-
No,
no.
Hand me that.
What happened is that
Hand me
the draft minutes were different, and then, but if you watch the video, it's very clear. So I'll send that to you and you can look at it. And then just once more, actually, Lloyd, again, thank you for doing a public comment at the end, because I think it's important for people to ask about what happened during this meeting. So that's great.
We do have some action to take on.